this heaven?
No. It's Iowa.
Want some bacon?
No, man. I don't eat pork.
Are you Jewish?
Nah, I ain't Jewish. I just don't dig on swine. That's all.
Why not?
Pigs are filthy animals. I don't eat filthy animals.
Yeah, but bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good.
Hey, sewer rat may taste like pumpkin pie, but I'd never know because I wouldn't eat a filthy motherfucker. Pigs sleep and root and shit. That's a filthy animal. I ain't eat nothing that ain't got some sense enough to disregard its own feces.
How about a dog? A dog eats its own feces.
I don't eat dog either.
Yeah, but do you consider a dog a filthy animal?
I wouldn't go so far as to call a dog filthy, but they're definitely dirty. But a dog's got personality. Personality goes a long way.
Ah, so by that rationale, if a pig had a better personality, he would cease to be a filthy animal. Is that true?
We'd have to be talking about one charming motherfucking pig, like Floyd Rosedale.
We're talking Pulp Fiction on the Pot of Dreams.
Miramax Films is proud to present one of the most celebrated motion pictures of the year. The winner of the 1994 Palme d'Or, the best picture of the Cannes Film Festival.
Come on, let's get in character. I'm so interested in Big Man's wife. Well, he's going out of town, Florida, and he asked me if I'd take care of her while he's gone. Take care of her? No, man. Just show her a good time, make sure she don't get lonely. Girl, you see, this is a moral test of oneself.
I do believe Marcellus, my husband, your boss, told you to take me out and do whatever I wanted.
I love you so much, can't count on whether or not you can maintain loyalty.
Night of the fight, you may feel a slight sting. Pride only hurts, it never helps. In the fifth, your ass goes down.
I have to say, you play with matches, you get burned.
We should have shotguns for this kind of deal.
We're in a lot of danger, aren't we?
I'm prepared to scour the earth for that mission.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Get down, get down.
You got a corpse in a car, minus a head in a garage. Take me to it.
Don't you hate that?
Hey, what?
Uncomfortable silences.
John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, Maria de Medeiros, Bing Rames, Eric Stoltz, Rosanna Arquette, Christopher Walken, and Bruce Willis.
Looking at something, friend? Ain't my friend looking.
Die, you mother!
A new film directed by Quentin Tarantino. Pulp Fiction.
You really thinking about quitting?
Most definitely.
What you gonna do then?
Basically, I'm just gonna walk the earth.
What you mean walk the earth?
You know, like Kane in Kung Fu.
Welcome, everybody, to the Pod of Dreams. If you listen, we will pod. This is Ben and Eric talking our favorite movies of all time. We have reached number one for me, which is Pulp Fiction, my all-time favorite movie. We've counted down from 5 to 1. This is my number one. And we will reveal what Ben's number one is at the end of the podcast. But today we're talking mine. 1994's Pulp Fiction. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Hi, Eric, so oftentimes I need to ask you, why do you like this movie? Why is it important to you? It's so unnecessary to ask this question. I know exactly why you love this movie. This is maybe the coolest movie ever. It's just pure distilled coolness.
I'll push back on that.
Okay.
I mean, it is cool, and there's a lot of cool, I think cool directing choices. But are any of the characters cool?
I'm sorry, you don't think Sam Jackson's character... Let's start there. You don't think Sam Jackson's character is cool as shit?
He's funny. He's charming. And he's terrifying. He's also pretty fucking weird. But I wouldn't necessarily what do you? I mean, like, what's cool? What does cool mean to you? Like, is Elvis the coolest guy ever? Like, that's what Tarantino would say. He would say Elvis is the bar for cool.
That's a generational thing, right? I mean, Elvis was a guy that was, died on the toilet, like that I heard about when I was a kid. So no, Elvis isn't the bar for cool, and Tarantino might think that, but that's fine.
Samuel Jackson he's a revelation in this movie, and I want to spend a lot of time talking about how amazing he is. I've seen this movie, I mean, more times than I can count.
Sure.
Every time I watch it, and particularly this last time, he stands out as like, holy fucking shit, this guy is incredible. I mean, we talk about some of the greatest performances. We talked about Marlon Brando, Heath Ledger. Like, I think Samuel Jackson as Jules is one of literally the all-time greatest performances by any actor in the history of movies.
Maybe he's the best performance in this movie. He's every second he's in. To me, he looks so cool. I don't know that I think he's that weird that you do. I mean, I don't know how weird he is really.
He says he's going to walk the earth and get into adventures like Kung Fu. Like, what? That's a weird fucking thing to say to his buddy, his crime buddy.
Could anybody say those lines in a more cool way?
Probably not.
Okay, that's the cool. So it's not even about the characters. I know we get fixated on characters. There's so many scenes, if I step back and think about it for a second, it's really probably not that cool what's happening. But everything that happens, the way they talk and the way they do stuff is cool.
See, again, this is where I push back, man. I think the conversations they have are pretty fucking weird, and the things they talk. See, that's a label that I think Tarantino gets, and I think it's unfair because I don't think that's true. I think he's trying to be cool. And he's trying to have his characters, but I don't necessarily think that that's the way I would describe this movie. It's just cool. It's a cool movie. I don't think that's correct. I
disagree. Like, when you hear Tim Roth's conversation at the beginning, they have this Bonnie and Clyde kind of relationship, fine. But look at the way he's thinking about robbing stuff. They're really thinking it through, and they decide to rob a diner. And the way they talk is quote unquote cool from my vantage point. This can be a subjective thing, Eric. I don't know. It's interesting to me. I see this and think, and especially earlier, I've changed. I'm a middle-aged dude now. When I was younger, it's like there's nothing cooler than to be one of these characters.
See, I think that's what it is. Is Tarantino wrote this as a young man. It's funny because for the majority, most of the actors are in their like late 30s or 40s. Like, the cast across the board there's not like young people. Tarantino is probably the youngest actor in the whole movie, but like they talk as if they're young people, and that's what I think it is. You see someone like Travolta or Bruce Willis, who I think they're like 38, 39, 40 when they made this movie, but they're talking like a 20-year-old, which is what you're relaying to, is that they're sounding cool.
And they have conversations about interesting things. I mean, the things they're talking about.
Having an interesting conversation doesn't inherently make them cool.
No, but it's the cadence, and it's the way they talk about it. It's an interesting conversation about mundane topics in a way that I perceived as cool and still do. Whether we're talking about how do we rob something, or what's the best way to rob? Let's think logically about the best place to rob. Okay, we think it's a diner. Talking about whether or not a massage is kind of like quasi-cheating. Where's the line on what is respectable behavior with another man's wife?
They ain't even the same fucking sport.
Talking about drugs. Talking about heroin. And what's good heroin.
And that's cool to you? That's cool? Talking about heroin and...
No, I said the way it happens. It's about the way everything happens. He makes things that I don't think are cool sound and feel cool. That, to me, that's what's in my head. I think, okay, this is about as cool as you could make a heroin conversation sound. This restaurant, which can't possibly exist in the real world, whatever that is, Jackrabbit Slim's. Like, I don't. Is it a real restaurant, or is it just made up for the movie?
I have no idea. I probably should know that.
I assume it's fake because it'd be such a ridiculous. I can't even imagine like what the overhead is and how difficult it would be to have a restaurant like that, and it didn't seem to make any sense. It's the coolest way to have like a diner experience with all these old movie references.
Largest chunk of the budget, $150,000, went to creating the Jackrabbit Slim set.
Yeah, okay.
It was built in a Culver City warehouse.
Got it. That makes sense because it didn't seem plausible. But okay, you're going to have this restaurant, and it's the coolest version of that kind of restaurant. I'm not saying those kinds of restaurants are cool. It's the coolest version of that kind of.
In 1990, is that a cool place to go hang out?
I get it. To me, it doesn't matter whether the thing is actually cool. You could not have a cooler version of whatever that thing is my whole point. It's not that the subject matter.
You're using the term cool in a way that I think it has a negative connotation, and you use that to describe this movie, and I don't think
it's
that's
not negative to me. That's bizarre that you're projecting this negativity on it and pushing back, as you say, against it, because it's not negative. It's what I love about it. There's not really any characters other than Jules that I particularly like. They're all kind of shitty in various ways. And again, Jules is still shitty, but it's just like peak Sam Jackson. And side note, Sam Jackson, he's going to play just such a pathetic character in Jackie Brown, and it's great anyway. And it's just a totally different kind of character. And he does a great job in Jackie Brown, too, but that's beside the point. I like it. This is why I loved the movie when I first saw it. I don't know how old I was when I saw it. I mean,
Did you see it? You didn't see it in the theater, right?
Oh, no, I was 10. There's absolutely no way. And it's a movie I saw, like, scenes from before I saw the full movie. Like, the dancing scene at Jackrabbit, like, that whole, like, dance competition is ludicrous. They'd have a dance competition every night. It doesn't make it looks cool. Everybody was doing it. Everybody was referencing it. I got the references. I mean, this movie gets referenced in Space Jam of all the movies. There's a Pulp Fiction reference in Space Jam of all the movies. It's like how you would dance if you were a cool person dancing. Like it's not. They're not articulating. We're talking. This is relevant to the subject that we're talking about. Why do you like this movie? It's not because it's cool. You think he's trying to be cool and he fails at being cool. What about it?
I think it's one of the funniest movies ever made.
Okay.
I think so. Recently listened to a podcast from Tarantino who was talking a little bit about the production of this movie and how like it got kicked around by couple different studios. I think actually Danny DeVito was one of the like people that shepherded from one studio to another, and he told a story about like I can't remember what major studio that they pitched the movie to, and they were like, this is like really violent. Like this is like really graphic and violent after reading the script. And he's like, yeah, but do you think it's funny? And they were like, what do you mean? He's like, it's a comedy. Do you think the movie's funny? And they were like, what are you talking about? And he passed because he's like, if you don't get that this is a comedy, then we're not making it with you. And that having heard him say that was such a revelation to me because everything in this movie it's a bit to a joke. Like literally everything, even the Ving Rhames getting ass raped is really just to lead up to I'm about to get medieval on his ass.
Is that
I'm pretty
funny?
fucking far from okay. That is hilarious. Are we okay? I'm pretty fucking far from okay. Like
okay.
I mean, whether or not you think that's like good humor or whatever, I guess that
I don't care that it's in poor taste. That doesn't read to me as a joke. It reads to me as like I'm going to get medieval on your ass doesn't make me laugh. It's like, oh, fuck. That guy's going to be really goddamn in a lot of pain. He's about to spend every bit of his short life in agonizing mother.
Also, the scene where Bruce Willis is picking out the weapons and he sees the sword and he decides to come back. I think it's all a payoff for a bit. Like, again, whether or not you think it's funny, I don't know. Maybe that's
interesting.
I've
never like. There's a couple of this is totally not related. So when Bruce Willis is leaving the like BDSM dungeon, and he bangs his knee, was that in the script, or was that just like?
No, he's limping. He was limping, and then he limps out of the.
Oh, but he bangs his knee. He goes, ow, and he bumbles his knee on the way out.
Well, yeah, I guess I don't know. I think he was hurt from the car accident. He's limping the whole time after the car accident.
I know, but he literally, he bangs his knees as he's leaving, is what I'm saying. Like, you see it, it's off in the distance, you can't really see it, and he goes, ah. he like bumps it or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
I don't know. It didn't look. It looked like maybe it was possibly a gag. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I laugh because I'm uncomfortable. Like there's a woman after Butch runs past Ving Rhames and he's pulling the glass out and Ving Rhames is stumbling around and he shoots just some poor woman in the leg. Like she's like an extra or whatever. Like she doesn't have any lines that I can remember, and she just screams, and I laugh because I'm uncomfortable.
Isn't it Kathy Griffin? No,
she's in there.
She's not like, the one that got shot, right? Yeah.
I'll testify against you. That man ran over you like a bat. She's being Ving Rhames, but then there's another woman checking on Bruce Willis who's like dazed and coming out of the car, and she gets shot by Ving Rhames. And I always feel bad for you, so I do kind of an anxious because I'm just like, oh man. That looked like she really got hit with a bullet, and that would really fucking suck. That would ruin your day.
I'm just saying, like the whole scene with Butch with the pocket watch, that was all just a gag. That it was having Christopher Walken talk about.
Yeah,
I had it on my ass for 5 months. It gets to
that. He's reading that line. Yeah. It builds up to that line.
It's all just a joke. It's all a gag, and that's. I mean, you might disagree. You might not think it's funny. I think this is one of the funniest movies ever. And I think it's hilarious.
Oh, see, it's not Big Lebowski to me at all. It's not even close to Big Lebowski on the comedy scale. I mean, this is...
It does such a great job of also intermixing, like, really serious, heavy shit like heroin overdose and ass raping. Like, I mean, there's, like, really heavy stuff in this movie. But I think also intermixing these jokes and gags that make it just pure entertainment.
Entertainment, I get like I'm gonna get medieval, and you're like, do you hear him say that and that made you laugh? Like, oh, that's funny. Like,
yeah, I think that's a funny ass thing to say when you're about to kill these guys.
Oh, see, I
get
thought
some blowtorches and some pliers and get medieval on his ass.
I thought it was a scary
hilarious
and cool way to say that. Like that was so ominous.
That's what it is. That I just put my finger on it. You're intermixing cool, and I think Tarantino is thinking that's supposed to be funny. Every time you've described this as cool, I think it's really just supposed to be funny. It's comical.
That's not how it works for me. I don't know. Okay. I don't laugh. I look and think, man, that's a fucking cool way to say something that you're gonna torture a guy. Like I'm not like ha 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 ha. No belly laugh. Like, oh man, that was such a fucking scary and cool way to describe what he's about to do.
When Jules I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Like, that's serious. But then he goes right back into his bits about the burger's the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast.
He's about to kill those guys. It's scary. It's not funny.
But he's fucking with them. He's
before he kills them. It's obvious he's going to kill them from the get-go. And it's like...
The whole idea of shooting Marvin in the head, that was just a gag. That was just all built up for comedy. That he shoots Marvin and now they have to hide the car and they got to clean the blood. That's all a gag. That's all it's a skit in the movie, and it's hilarious. I mean,
it's weird and random, and I don't have any comparisons in movies that I've ever seen where like that happens, and then
Jules, I'm a race car and I'm in the red. It's like, well, I'm a fucking mushroom cloud laying motherfucker. Every time I touch brain, I'm about to explode. In fact, why am I here cleaning this shit up? You should be back here. Like that whole interaction with Winston and cleaning up the brain, and it's hilarious. They're your clothes, motherfucker. Like that whole situation. All I'm saying is that unlocks something for me when I watch this movie. Is like Tarantino, who I think is the greatest modern screenwriter ever. I would argue. I mean, maybe even greatest, just period.
Sure.
And he's all writing jokes. These are all just jokes, and I think the movie also does touch on some like cool themes, like loyalty really comes up over and over again in this movie. And I think the movie is like sort of, if you wanted to find like a overarching theme or idea that this movie has, I think it's definitely about loyalty, even loyalty among evil people. And I think the end dialogue that Jules has when he's explaining it to Tim Roth, what that Bible quote means, where he's like, you know, I'm the shepherd and, you know, my gun's the whatever. He's like, that's not true. The truth is you're the weak and I'm the tyranny of evil men, but I'm trying. Like, I think that's really like what this movie's trying to say just about the evils of the world and the people like that, the criminals and the
See, I don't read any themes in it whatsoever. I mean, I never have. It's always been just a really fun movie to watch. I have fun watching it. I don't laugh a ton. I just think, oh, this is a really good time. I'm enjoying this experience immensely. I'm enjoying the conversations. I'm enjoying these weird scenarios.
You don't think it's funny where they're sitting there and she's telling, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to kill anybody. And he's like, I know, honey bunny. It's like, well, let's rob this place. And then she just gets up. I'll execute every one of you motherfuckers. Like, you don't find that funny?
I mean, the surprise that doesn't happen anymore. I already know that, like, and maybe the first time it was like, whoa, I can't believe she exploded. And she went from, like, sweet and tender to, like, crazy screaming. But I mean, I know it's coming. It's the surprise. Oh man, doesn't there? I mean, I know she's gonna start screaming in a second, and it's gonna freeze frame and cut and go to the title sequence or whatever.
Like you're saying, cool. I also think it's like an inherently weird movie. Like it is so strange.
But see, the weird stuff that happens, it seems and it's cool, and that it's taking and in that it's doing all this weird stuff and doesn't really have. I mean, there are these little narrative threads. And there's something about his soul or what. I mean, like, I don't really care.
Yeah, the briefcase, like, what a weird thing.
The plot doesn't matter, though. The briefcase doesn't ultimately really matter. It's a MacGuffin, really. It doesn't, it's irrelevant. I enjoy, that's part of what makes it so fun and throwaways, that there's just these vignettes that tie together vaguely, but there is no grand plot. I mean, he calls it Pulp Fiction at the beginning. It's like a reference.
But that's even a joke because the first like definition is like pulp, like moist juice, like, and then actual,
and then a magazine that is tawdry or whatever.
But that's all just a joke. Like you're supposed to read that and think that's funny. I think that's my read on it.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe to me, it's the thesis of the movie. This is what we're doing. This is going to be tasteless and not about anything serious. So I mean, I don't take this tone of this movie too seriously, but I also don't read it as comedy. This is going to be throwaway, violent, silly gore, and crazy scenarios. Where you have it, like, even Jules describes Harvey Keitel's character as cool. Man, is he the coolest motherfucker ever? Like in there, even when you were fucking with him, he didn't really react. I mean, literally, you have another character describing another character who did seem pretty cool. As cool as you can make Harvey Keitel.
He's the one guy in the movie that I would agree that he's designed to just be cool. Like he's cool. He takes care of the situation, and he's just cool as shit. Like then so he calls it out. But I wouldn't say anybody else in the movie is cool. I mean, Ving Rhames is tough and cool in that way, but then we see him get debased and he have a ball gag and get ass raped. Like
right. But could you have a cooler response after somebody rapes you, steps aside, shoots him in the balls, and even the way he's like, there is no me and you, two things, You
lost your LA privileges.
Yes. I mean, the way he talks, every time Ving Rhames is incredibly cool. The way he tries to convince Bruce Willis to like, hey,
see, good writing doesn't make it cool. Like, again,
I don't think everybody who's a good writer is cool. Quentin Tarantino has a particular style. I'm talking about Quentin Tarantino's writing. Yeah. I'm not talking about every great writer ever. I don't think great writing is synonymous with cool.
Right, I know that's my point. I think you're using cool in a negative
I'm saying that's how I perceive it. Well, you can perceive it that way. This is a movie I love. My God, when I reviewed it on a 5 out of 5 stars. I call it cool. I call it throwaway and fun, elegant, awesome, incredibly well-made trash.
Cool and throwaway and trash are not 3 words I would use to describe something that I think is that I like a lot and means a lot to me. That's just all. That's me.
First of all, this is you can like it for whatever reason you want. We're talking about my taste here, so whatever. I'm describing this is I call it shallow, trashy, shameless, low-grade art that is put together with much love and skill. That's exactly how I feel about this movie. It's fun. I'm not like denigrating it. You seem to think that's derogatory. I'm not meaning it in a derogatory way.
John Travolta's character is like a heroin addict junkie who basically kills people for a mobster. Like he's kind of a schlubby, like middle-aged guy too. Like
Is there a cooler version? How would you make that character any more cool than John Travolta?
Just because John Travolta is cool and he can dance.
I don't think John Travolta is cool at all. In fact,
I know you're not a big fan of John Travolta. We've learned that on this podcast.
How would you make a middle-aged guy that works for a hitman any more cool? His whole exchange, he's a heroine. I don't want his life. Cool doesn't mean I want their life or I want to be these people. Like, that's not what cool means.
What do you mean by cool, then? Please explain that to me. Define what you mean by cool in the terms of this movie.
I'm gonna Google the definition of cool. I mean,
what do you mean? What are you when you say cool? Like, what are you meaning?
Like, there wouldn't be a way to be these characters in a way that is. It's hard to describe. Like, somehow indifferent, stylish. Make it look as appealing as possible, but just because you make something that's shitty look as appealing as you possibly can doesn't mean the thing is ultimately appealing. What I mean, like, it's got this certain cool aesthetic style, this like indifference and like sharp quality. Like, it doesn't give a shit, like it doesn't care about anything. And it looks desirable on its surface in a shallow way.
Okay.
Nobody has too many real emotions. I mean, they have emotions, but do we see Ving Rhames isn't crying? He's bloody.
Because he's a fucking gangster. Like, he's not like that seems real to me. Like, that guy's not gonna cry. He wants to fucking kill these guys. Like,
and John Travolta isn't gonna cry. And Samuel
John
Jackson
Travolta, when Mia is ODing, he is literally losing his mind
because he knows he's gonna die if she dies. He
also cares about her. Like, there's definitely a piece where he feels responsible. Cool he was falling for her, and his loyalty was in question with his boss.
And he didn't cross the line because he's cool. Much like Brad Pitt didn't go for the jailbait in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because he's cool. Cool guy.
And you say that in that negative way. See, this is why
we're
arguing about it, because I think you're using cool in a way that it's a cop out in a way to not necessarily describe how you actually feel about these characters in this movie. And you're using it in a way that I think is negative. But we've harped on that point. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
the one thing I wanted to say.
Negative. I love this movie. So this is bizarre.
I remember when this movie came out. So I was like 12, like probably 11, 12 years old. And I wanted to see it. And my mom would not let me see this movie in the theater. Because there was this because it came out at Cannes, won the Palme d'Or, right? So it was like a festival, like, darling of a movie. And then when did it was released later, I think right around Christmas, right? Or was it maybe like a summer movie? I can't remember
I don't know.
Like when it was released. But I remember there was just May. It came out October in the US. So it was like the fall. There was like this sort of, because there wasn't the internet, and I was a little kid really, but there was the talk about how violent this movie was and grotesque and like offensive, and there's the rape scene was like the thing, and that was like why my mom just like wouldn't let us watch it. And
sure.
I look back on it and it's like it really is pretty shocking. Like, when you think about modern, like if this movie came out right now and they're like, there's a major, if Tarantino put out a movie, he would, which he never would at his age now, where there's like, you got white people being racist as shit, because there's a lot of racism in this movie. And
you love this movie, but you don't love the racism, I assume.
I don't love racism. I'm against racism. I will say there feels a little bit of realism the way that the characters talk to each other. That like that obviously I don't like hearing it. I think
their racism is authentic, is what you're saying.
Aside from the Tarantino cameo, which we'll talk about, I think his whole character and what he says is just stupid and shouldn't be in the movie. It doesn't add anything. It's really bad. It is. It's bad.
It gets worse every time I watch it. It's just really bad.
And he's really bad in it, too.
He's a bad actor. He is just a bad actor.
He's a bad actor, and what
he
said...
He can't make the line say cool. He can't. He sticks out like a sore thumb because he can't get the words out in a way that sounds cool. But he's reading
his lines that you just said are all cool when Samuel Jackson...
The lines are cool, but it's the whole movie is cool. It's not just... It's the way that it's shot.
He's the least cool in the whole movie.
Because he's a bad actor. If you swap Samuel L. Jackson for any other, there's a billion actors you could swap it in, and the movie would be less cool. You could shoot this movie in a different way, and it would be less cool. You could swap a bunch of actors out, and the movie would be less cool. It's not just the dialogue. The dialogue is a huge part of it, but it's got this...
But, Christopher Walken's character is super racist, right? The stuff he says about Vietnam.
Sure,
but, a Vietnam vet probably would talk that way, right? Don't you think? I mean,
sure. His is the most plausible. Tim Roth's character, this British guy, speaks that way. Okay, or whatever his nationality is in this. Eric Stoltz. Okay, he's and then they're all less bad because they're all competent actors reading the lines, so they don't stick out as egregiously. But as a monologue with the worst actor in the movie. You would never
see that in a Netflix movie now, right? There would never be a Netflix movie where they talk. Where there's white people just being casually racist.
No.
And it just wouldn't exist. And the way that the black characters talk to each other, you don't see that much in movies anymore either, where they're throwing around racial slurs back and forth. You just don't see that in movies anymore. And you didn't really see it back then either. You know what I mean? I think that's part of what I guess the point I was making is the release of this movie there was a lot of shock to it. Sure. And Tarantino, as a younger guy, that was the thing he was all about, was being shocking, pushing the envelope, making it more violent than it should be. Which there's a few scenes where our guy Frank Wally, when he gets killed, there's no blood and you don't see anything. And I always wonder was that a Harvey Weinstein thing where he wanted to cut it to make it less violent, so we didn't see blood for the first hour of the movie? It just seems weird because Samuel Jackson shoots him in the arm. He also shoots the Flock of Seagulls guy. There's literally not a drop of blood in that whole scene. It's weird. And then later on, we see Marvin's brains explode and they're sopping up blood in the car.
Well, we don't see his brains explode, but they put the makeup on. We don't.
There's brains in Jules' hair. There's literally brain.
Yeah, they put makeup in, but we don't actually see the impact on Marvin Place. We see the gun go off.
There's a scene where he shuts the trunk in his head there with this.
Yeah, that's a makeup. That's a made up body. My point is, we don't see the act of shooting. We don't see Marvin get shot. We see the bullet come out, but we don't see it actually impact his head. That's all my point. That's just true. We don't see it. We see the after effects. We see what happens because of the shot. We see the impact of all the blood brains.
There's a lot of violence and a lot of blood, but that opening sequence, they cut a lot of that out, or they didn't put blood in there. It's just curious to me. It's one of the. It looks actually takes me out of it a little bit. It's
oh, interesting.
Frank Wally gets shot and he's holding his arm and there's no blood. What the fuck? Why is there no blood? And the Flock Seagulls guy, he shoots him on the couch and there's no blood. I mean, he shoots him point blank with a giant handgun and there's no blood. I don't know. But I think there was Weinstein, I think, fought a lot with Tarantino to make this less violent, so it would be more appetizing for the general public.
Yeah, that could be. I don't know. I mean, the violence is part of it. I know you don't want to get back into it, but when I say cool, I'm talking about sort of this aloofness, a nonchalance. All this crazy stuff is happening, but people don't react with shock and awe, except for, I mean, even when they shoot Marvin in the face, John Travolta doesn't freak out. He's like, oh man, I accidentally shot Marvin in the face. And Sam Jackson gets kind of worked up about it, but then they just coolly problem solve the issue as best they can. I don't know anybody in this part of town, and they eventually get Wolf, and they just think through it and react. They react to the violence.
I mean, Jules is freaking out. He's dry, cops send a notice that blood-stained car.
But not emotionally. It's just about getting caught. It's about, what do we have to do to deal with this?
Well, they didn't care about this Marvin guy.
They're also indifferent to murdering. They don't care. They're gangsters, right? They don't. It's another day at the office. He's some guy they knew, or he was their inside man. I don't know what Marvin's relationship is to Jules in this movie, because John Travolta asks, how many people is in there before they go in the building? And Jules says 3 or 4, and he's like, does that include your guy? And he says, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
And then they says,
We
this guy,
shot
a friend of
shotguns
yours,
for this shit. Yeah.
he's like, I'd knock that shit out if I was you, Marvin.
And he leans down. He's like, why didn't you tell us there was a guy with a hand
So
cannon?
they have some sort of connection. I don't know what it is. It doesn't really matter. So, I mean, they have they didn't want to kill him, but if I accidentally shot somebody, I would react very differently. I wouldn't react in a cool way.
A guy who's, like you were saying, who's like executes people as a profession, his idea of the value of life is different than yours.
But everybody acts nonchalantly. Uma Thurman almost dies of a heroin overdose. And she's, like, we see her frothing at the mouth and all this other stuff. We jump from the adrenaline shot, but she just kind of nonchalantly walks and then just tells the joke that she didn't want to tell earlier, the ketchup joke.
That's just good writing, man. I think you're conflating.
I don't think it's bad. This is your thing that it being cool is a problem. You've heard me criticize stuff for being cool too much, and now you can't grasp that it can be an asset or it can be really good. I like that people aren't reacting.
I think you're limiting it. It's a way to describe it where it limits its value.
I don't think this movie is high art. I don't think it has a thesis. I think this is just pure fun. I maybe Tarantino had some deep thing. I'm going to really talk about the nature of loyalty. Maybe. I don't know if that was in his head. I don't care about that stuff. None of that themes resonate with me. It's just so fun to watch these people in these situations doing this stuff and not acting like, they're acting like movie characters in ways that
the filmmaking adds a lot to what you're saying. Like why it feels so cool is because of how it's filmed, and I think the music adds a lot to that too. Like,
of course, the soundtrack is
the way she jumps
insane.
up, I'll execute every one of you fuckers, and then it stops, it freezes, and then it has that guitar playing, and then the credits roll. Like that's a cool ass way.
And then it cuts to Jungle Boogie a little bit later. No,
and then they're in the car talking about
does a record scratch
Royale with cheese and shit. Like that is a cool ass transition. Like in that way, I get what you're saying. Like that, but that's the filmmaking where it's just
everything. It's everything. It's not just the writing. You're fixated on that. The writing is part of it. You could write this movie very differently, and it wouldn't work on the same level. It all works together. It's the acting, the filmmaking, the structure of it themselves, the scenes, the settings, all of it is what. It's not just the words. Like that's part of it, and you're fixated on that. But that's not my only point. Obviously, the example of Quentin Tarantino's lines, it could go badly. If Quentin Tarantino played every role in this movie, it would not be cool. It would just be bizarre, and it wouldn't work, and it'd be terrible. Like, it's everything. You think this is like besmirching it. It's very difficult to make a movie like he's making. It's exceedingly a movie that's pure fun, and it's almost about nothing. It's about little things, but it's also not really about anything. And have it be fun and interesting and be this weird when you think about the plot and what's happening for even a second. This was a popular movie. It absolutely just echoed throughout all of pop culture. I don't know how much it still does, but in the 90s, late 90s, this was referenced in the playground. Even when I hadn't seen the movie, people were saying, I'm going to get medieval on your ass on the basketball court or whatever. Like, I hadn't even seen the movie, but I heard that expression before I saw this. I don't mean it negative in this context, other than maybe the way he makes casual racism sound cool. I don't like that. And that sounds worse and worse to me every time I watch it. But the Tarantino himself monologue is the worst. But Martin Scorsese did it in Taxi Driver 2, which is also really bad. He's got his own racist monologue. His is less egregious because he's a slightly better actor. But I don't mean it in a bad way. This is where I'm going to push back on I'm not being pejorative. I don't know that anybody else in history could have ever made a movie like this. And when I think of some of his other movies, he goes a different direction. But when I think of like Death Proof, for example, Death Proof is kind of his worst tendencies, and it's just not quite as cool a movie. It just doesn't work. Everything's not perfect balance. It's not structured perfectly. It's not as fun to look at. We've got like just two, we have that whole scene in the bar, and then we have the driving, and then there's the later on when they finally kill Kurt Russell's character. It doesn't work as well. I like Jackie Brown because it's a little more mature, and there's a little bit more plausibility with some of the characters. And we also get characters who aren't cool, like Robert De Niro and Sam Jackson are incredibly not cool in Jackie Brown. But nobody else could make this kind of movie. That's my whole point. Like, this is pure distilled coolness, and I don't mean that pejoratively. You really think I'm trying to besmirch it. Nobody else could make this movie. And it wouldn't get made now, and it probably couldn't have gotten made 20 years before it actually got made. Only Quentin Tarantino could make this movie, and it's extremely fun. I don't know. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't know how to convince you that I don't hate this movie or think I'm limiting it by calling it cool.
So
it's awesome.
The movie there's 3 primary storylines, and there's like 7 narrative sequences where it has the thing. It's the diner, Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife, Vincent, and then the gold watch, the Bonnie situation, and then back to the diner. So it's really like three kind of primary storylines that intersect at different like timeline or different chronological sequences. Do you think that, like, I know we've talked about Christopher Nolan and like how he does that in a lot of his movies where nothing's like Dunkirk's a good example where things aren't happening at the same time. Do you think that adds to this movie? After you've seen it many times,
I wouldn't want it to be linear. It works better that it's not linear.
I think so too.
It's not trying too hard. It's not like Christopher Nolan sometimes is like, ooh, look at me, I'm making a point about narrative structure and meaning sometimes, and it's like
it's okay. not cool enough. Christopher Nolan's not cool.
It's like, okay, we get it. You've been doing this for a while. I get it. You're interested in time and narrative structure and whatever. Okay, you're still into it. That's fine. Tarantino's not making a point. He's using it to just kind of like, we're really not thinking about a plot here. This is just kind of episodic, pulpy, like a little short, trashy story in a magazine, but come to life. Some like low-grade stuff that he probably read when he was a kid, which is fine.
So, which actually looked into it. So the book that Vincent Vega is reading is, I can't remember the name of it, but it's this like pulp comic about this like woman detective or something, which I thought was kind of interesting because he's reading it like he has it set out there. Or no, he's reading when he walks out of the bathroom and Butch shoots him. And then he has it when they're at the diner. He's like, I gotta go take a shit, and he's sitting there reading the book. But I thought that was a kind of a cool like callback to what the movie is. It's the sort of pulp comic-y.
Yeah. Story. I don't like the structure in like, it's profound way, but there's stuff you can do, like the stuff with Jules. They don't get hit, right? They get missed at pretty close range. Neither one gets hit with a bullet, and Jules interprets that as a divine intervention. John Travolta says, whatever, man. It's just a freak occurrence. It can happen. There's nothing divine about it. And he carries on. Presumably, Jules goes off and does his kung fu adventure thing. Fine. John Travolta doesn't see it that way, and he gets shot coming out of a shitter by his own gun. So you can read whatever you want about divine intervention if you want, and souls sold. Who cares? I don't care about any of that stuff, but that's there if you really want to chew on it. No, it works that there are these vignettes. It works, and there's a structure. They all live in the same universe.
I just think narratively, like, it starts with these guys robbing this diner, and you're like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like, and then we don't see that for the rest of the movie, and then we come back where our main characters just have like, you don't see them in the diner in the beginning, but they're there. They're having their own conversation about fucking pork and bacon and all that, and then. It's sort of just the bookend of that. I think is just worth it just for that because I really love that when you see that they're in the diner and you're like, oh shit, Honey Bunny, he's about to pull his gun and execute everyone.
It's set up a really crazy thing because you hear him say garçon and you're like, oh, they're going to be in the diner when they're robbing it. How's that going to play out when these? And
then you can see it, and then you get to see the whole fucking. It's one that says bad motherfucker.
And like, be cool, Yolanda. I mean, it's just Samuel Jackson keeps his cool, gives them the $1,500 to buy in something, gives them a speech, and nobody gets killed. And they just walk out. I did chuckle that when they walk out and they look around, and all the people in the diner, they're like, nobody knows what to make of what they just saw.
Yeah. And they put their guns in their little shorts.
And there is a meta moment, I think, when like Tarantino's spraying them the blood off in the backyard, and then they put his clothes on. I do think there's a little bit of Tarantino, like I made John Travolta and Sam Jackson have to wear these really, really unflattering clothes and put it in a major movie. I mean, I think there's a little bit of like, look like I made him look like a couple of dorks.
And they're your clothes, motherfucker. That's these putting on their personality, his personality, in that way.
Sure. But
Do you have a favorite of the storylines? Like, if you could separate them, which one do you think is like the most entertaining or cool?
Well, the least one is Bruce Willis. I mean, I like the watch story's fine. His relationship with whatever the woman's name is doesn't do as much for me.
Yeah.
Their little cutesy talk is a little bit. See, that doesn't feel cool. He tries. They have weird, aloof conversations, right? They say things weirdly. She talks about how she wants a pot belly, the way she talks about Blueberry, and they have a weird cadence, but it doesn't quite register as cool or funny to me that much. So I don't like their relationship so much.
That's like French New Wave bullshit, right? Isn't it? Where they just have these like weird, innocuous conversations that don't.
Oh, sure. The guy his production company's called The Band Apart, which is one of the New Wave films from the 50s, one of the French films, and he loves those movies that you would probably hate. And I don't really like them much either. I find them
like
really
Fellini
tedious.
or some shit like that, isn't it?
This isn't Fellini, it's French, so it's like Jean-Luc Godard.
Breathless, right? I had to turn that shit off, man. That movie, I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't.
You would hate it. I mean, he's got Godard has a sci-fi movie called Alphaville, and it's pure abstraction. I just I've seen these movies. I've seen A Band Apart.
When is this going to go anywhere? And it never
doesn't go anywhere.
It never does.
And I don't think this movie ultimately goes anywhere. It's just more violent and fun and poppy than like a French movie. This is like an American.
No, but like Jules has an arc. Like he has, like you're saying, if you just looked at his character, like he's this gangster. He comes to a revelation that this life isn't his anymore, and he changes. Like he has an actual character. I guess Vega does too. Like. In a negative way, yeah.
But Bruce Willis just gets away with it. But he makes a moral choice to save.
He's even loyal to the man that was trying to kill him, and.
Well, I don't know this loyalty. I mean, I do think he's like, all right, what's the right thing to do?
He's loyal to his common man.
It's like he's in this situation with me, and it's a pretty fucking awful situation. So I'm gonna murder him, or I'm gonna kill the guys that are doing it. But yeah, that's my least favorite. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I really like the other two the most. I mean, it'd be very, very tough between the other two because I like them a lot. I love the whole date and everything about.
I was gonna say the date. The date is so. It's one of the parts of the movie that like I always forget how much I enjoy that. Like that's a $5 shake. You don't put bourbon nothing in that. Like that whole sequence is amazing. And
but did you laugh?
Yeah, fucking I don't know if it's worth $5. It's a pretty fucking good shake. Like every time I watch that, I laugh. It's hilarious.
But I even like the way they are attuned to conversations. Like, well, now you've built it up too much. Now I can't possibly tell you, or you can't. I can't promise to not be offended because I don't know what you're gonna say, and you don't get to like. It's this very self-aware dialogue that I love. I'm not knocking it.
It's just good writing.
It's different.
Man.
Well, I agree. I do think the writing's good. I think it's not. Tarantino's writing is not always this good. This is the best version of like a stereotypical Quentin Tarantino movie. This is everything he'd want to do. And I mean, I guess to me, if he uses this humor, it's fine. The humor doesn't land for me so much. It doesn't play like that. And I guess maybe in my friend group, people didn't see this movie and like laugh. I don't remember very few people laughing at the movie. It's more just like, oh, you see what's happening? This is pretty crazy.
Next time you watch it, if you ever do again, think of it like a comedy. And
I will watch this movie again. So just
you bought the Blu-ray?
No, this is like a DVD I got years ago, from like a expiring Blockbuster. It was not $15. It was probably like $3 or something. I love the movie. You seem to think I don't, but I will watch it again. I don't hate it forever.
So we've talked. I had one other thing I wanted to ask you about. So the Academy Awards 1995 for the 1994 year, Best Supporting Actor. The nominees are Gary Sinise, Forrest Gump, Paul Scofield, Quiz Show, Chaz Palminteri, Bullets Over Broadway, Martin Landau, Ed Wood, and Samuel Jackson for Pulp Fiction. And Samuel Jackson does not win for Best Supporting Actor. He does not have an Oscar at this point in time. Like, that is a fucking crying shame that I think Martin Landau won, right, for Ed Wood?
So you say this. I haven't seen, other than Forrest Gump, and I do think Samuel Jackson should win over Gary Sinise and Forrest Gump. I haven't seen any of those other movies. I haven't seen all of Ed Wood, so
I've
I can't
seen parts
confirm
of
or
it.
not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've seen bits of it too. I've seen the opening a couple of times. I haven't seen Quiz Show, so I'm gonna wait to get. Well, I'm not gonna get indignant anyway. Samuel Jackson is a legendary actor, and whether he gets an Academy or not is irrelevant to me. Maybe it's relevant to you, but I don't care. He's great. He's great in this movie. He's great in a lot of movies.
He's just. I mean, I honestly I cannot say enough how amazing the magnetism, the way he delivers these lines. Like he goes from terrifying to hilarious to charming. Like his entire progression. There is not an actor that could have been Jules and like nailed this. I read somewhere that at some point Tim Roth thought Tim Roth would play Vega, and an English actor. He played Winston Churchill.
Gary Oldman?
Gary Oldman, because he was in True Romance. That they would be Jules and Vega, and they'd both be English, and that was like at one point his idea, and it's just like there's no way. I mean, this movie without Samuel Jackson. I mean, I would still love it, but holy shit, I honestly I cannot say how much I am impressed by him in this movie. It's amazing. He should have won for this. You mentioned Jackie Brown. I mean, Jackie Brown is probably his like second best performance in any movie. And like you said, he wasn't cool. He's cool as shit in Jackie Brown, but he's also like awful and horrible and terrifying. He's like a villain in that movie.
Yeah, he's charismatic and likable, but he's not. I mean, he's funny. I laugh more in that movie. That is some repugnant shit when he says that about the couch and Jackie Brown. I mean,
he says that in this about the brains in the car. He's just repeating the line from this movie.
But it works better in the other context of Jackie Brown. He just seems a lot more. Even his haircut is just awful in Jackie Brown. I mean, it looks terrible. It's a weird ratty haircut. He just looks disheveled and more pathetic and sad, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I think it's a great performance. You can split hairs over this one or Jackie Brown. I don't really care. I love them both. I think they're both great performances. And Sam Jackson, I mean, he's a guy that makes just about every movie he's in better. I mean, he's probably been in a fair amount of shitty movies, but those shitty movies are less shitty because he's in them.
The other one that jumps out at me is Uma Thurman. Like, I think she's
great. Really
amazing in this movie. And I don't think she's like cool. I mean, she's kind of cool in the way she talks, and I think she's like,
I think so,
attractive, but like she's also like obviously a drug addict. She's doing cocaine by herself when he shows up, and she's watching him, and she's also like married to this gangster dude and doing cocaine in the bathroom and snorting whatever is in this other weird guy's pocket that she met for the night. Like, she's kind of a degenerate to a certain extent, and she's obviously lonely because her boss or Vega's boss like asked him to take her out. She doesn't have friends. Obviously, there's no one else she could hang out with. So there's some sadness to her character too, which I think Uma Thurman does a great job of portraying. But she's amazing, incredible actor. Shame she wasn't like a bigger star. I don't know what happened there. She's in Batman. I don't know.
I mean, well, she's in Kill Bill, obviously. She got an accident in Kill Bill, fucked up her body. The accident she didn't want to do, and Quentin Tarantino pressured her heavily to do it.
That's true.
But I mean, I don't know. She was in some stuff for a while. I don't know. Look it up, but I enjoyed Kill Bill a lot. That movie was all the rage when I was in college. That was when Kill Bill exploded onto the scene. And even more violent than this movie, but Eric, give me a 5 out of 5. Do we need to?
Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5. It's
5 out of 5.
It's my favorite movie ever. Like favorite. Like if you said what's your favorite movie, I would say Pulp Fiction is my favorite.
Is this the funniest movie ever for you?
Yeah, funniest. Like it's just
funny, haha, like it amused you.
Yes, funny, haha, like I'm a clown and I amuse you. Yes, I would say yes. I think it's probably one of, if not the funniest movie.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, I don't know what to make of that. I'll try to watch it sometime again. and then try to think of it as a comedy. I'll try to say this is a comedy. This is a comedy.
It's like I said, the whole Christopher Walken speech. Every time I watch that, I'm like, this is just fucking weird. Like, this is a weird thing for him to say to this little kid. And then it dawned on me, it's like, it's a joke. He's setting up for the punchline about having it up his ass, and you're telling
him. Because he plays it straight.
And then he hands it to him, and the kid's like, you just said you just had this in your ass. Like, what? Like, what a weird, and that's funny. Like, the whole thing. And that obviously ties into the story because it meant a lot to Bruce Willis's character because it's the only thing that his dad passed on to him, and then obviously he has to go back to get it. So it ends up being like a huge plot point in the movie, but I really think that whole story is just a joke. And then
of course that part is sure, and he plays it straight. I mean, it sounds something like a character would actually say, right? Like he's describing what happened to the watch, the history of the watch. And it sounds like a serious war movie. This is something you have to do, and then he just nonchalantly says, "In his ass." And then I had this horrible hunk of metal in my ass for 2 years or whatever long it was.
Then he died of dysentery. Like he just kind of like casually tosses that in there.
Yeah, and with a certain aloof nonchalance. I
just like how Uma Thurman has her joke that she has to deliver. She talks about the pilot and the ketchup joke. Like I think that's like what the movie is like just a big setup to get their jokes in. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you disagree. But I think
it's subjective. If it made you laugh and you think these are jokes and you're in on the joke and it's all just a big bit, that's fine. I see it differently. It does it 5 out of 5 for me, and I know you seem to think it'd be 20 out of 5 if it was less cool. We have the same rating. You just don't like my subjective interpretation of the film.
It's because I've heard you use that cool as a pejorative, like you were saying. With
it can
Brad
be.
Pitt, oh, he's so cool.
It's hard to do it really well. And when I see some, like, I've certainly seen plenty of movies where like, oh, you're trying to do Tarantino and failing miserably. You're trying to just do these like aloof characters.
Why is that? Why has nobody? I would argue Snatch is like Snatch the movie.
Sure.
Is like that's a Tarantino ripoff. That movie's fucking awesome. I mean, that was like on my short list. That was one of the. So
sure.
We've hit my top 5. We've done all 5 for me. That was one that I like had a really hard time not including. The
Snatch
other one
and Lock, Stock.
Tombstone was another one that I had a really hard time not including in my top 5. But
yeah, well, we can do a whole thing on honorable mentions. I mean, there was a lot that could have made the list that didn't. Stuff that I was wrestling with just like days before it was my turn to pick. But yeah, Guy Ritchie.
We'll get to your number one, you know.
Well, we will. Guy Ritchie seems like one of those that not quite as good. Just doesn't have it. Yeah, I mean, I like Snatch. I like Lock, Stock. They're not anywhere close to Pulp Fiction, but they kind of try. And they're good, but they're not like all time. Like Pulp Fiction is the best cool movie of all time by far. It's great. I don't know. And I know you flinch and you can't handle it. But.
Well, it seems like now, like the generation of people that were like influenced by that, like they don't make shit anywhere near this good. Like there are movies that are like there's like gangster people that are like funny and how they talk to each other, and that's like where that's where the comparison ends for the most part. You know,
sure.
It's just like these kind of movies that come out are just bad. The other thing I was gonna see, so Roger Avery, right? We didn't have any conversation about him, who was the co-writer of the movie. He won an Oscar for best screenplay with Tarantino. They won it together. And like his kind of arc as a filmmaker, I've never seen any of his movies, and he's made other movies, which I should. I mean, I love this. It's like my favorite movie, and I've never seen any other movies by this other, like the co-writer of the movie. But, I don't know, it's just interesting, like his influence on this. I know Tarantino kind of like dicked him out of giving him credit so it could be like a film by Quentin Tarantino. So that's kind of a douchey thing to do. But they're obviously, they do a podcast together. They're obviously cool with each other. But it's just interesting.
Oh, shit. Okay. Sorry. I got to Roger Avery's Wikipedia page. Sorry, he got in trouble with like a drunk driving and a manslaughter charge in 2008.
Oh, yikes!
And he directed. I mean, the only one of these I've heard of is The Rules of Attraction, which I just have a vague romantic comedy. That's the only movie he's actually directed that I've heard of. He wrote Beowulf. We talked about Robert Zemeckis last time. He wrote the Silent Hill movie, which I never watched and I never played the game and I don't know anything about it or care. But a lot of the stuff. Glitterati, I've never heard of. It's unreleased. That's why.
Killing Zoe was the movie he did, kind of with Pulp Fiction. I think it maybe even came out before Pulp Fiction, but that was his I think it's similar in that sort of crime-esque kind of movie. That was the one that I was like, I should check this out. But it's just odd to me that this co-writer of this movie did really nothing else. I mean, maybe it was I know they worked together at the video store. That's how they knew each other and wrote kind of bits about this movie. And maybe that's just because he didn't have that great of an involvement in this, and Tarantino kind of let him also, because they maybe kicked around ideas together. And
it's a story credit is how it went down in history. So they might have been wouldn't this be I won't use the word cool. Wouldn't this be an interesting idea to put in the movie? Wouldn't this be a fun idea to put in the movie? What if they did this? What if this happened?
I wondered, it'd be interesting is whose idea was the Ving Rhames gets raped? Who was that Roger Avery? Was that Tarantino? It would be kind of interesting to see who actually thought of that,
Sure. Will they ever? I mean, at this point, it's been a long time. Are they able to recall?
Well, if they're the invitation's out there, if they ever want to come on our podcast.
Oh my God, yes.
And talk about their, life's work, Pulp Fiction. We'd love to have them. We'd love to have Roger Avery and Quentin Tarantino on. Maybe someday.
Yeah, someday it'll happen. Let's hold out hope. All right. Should we dive into our 5 degrees?
Yeah.
Want me to jump in here? Okay.
Sure.
So I mean, there's obviously a boatload of names, and there's the immediate connection you can make. Big brains on Brett being in Field of Dreams, but I wanted to find a small. So Honey Bunny, that's her credited name. Yolanda. I couldn't think of anything that I'd seen her in. The actress's name is Amanda Plummer. So I looked at her IMDb.
I could tell you right now what I've seen her in.
What's that?
And we just watched it as a family. She's in the second Hunger Games movie.
Oh, okay.
It's weird. She pops up in it, and she's one of the people that have won the Hunger Games. And I'm like, how's Honey Bunny?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I've not seen any of those movies. Are you rewatching them?
Yeah, my kids like them. I mean, it's
okay. I know your wife made you watch the movies when they came out. I remember you not liking them, and you had to go see them, and you were grumpy about it. So I'm glad it's coming full circle. Now I have to rewatch them with your kids. I'm happy for you. Well, on her IMDb page, she's in So I Married an Axe Murderer, a movie I saw once and thought was really funny. Plays a character called Rose. I don't know. I don't even remember her from it, but she's there. Also in So I Married an Axe Murderer is what's his name? He's Averman in Mighty Ducks. Matt Doherty is his name. This guy, So I Married an Axe Murderer, he's the kid with the big head. Look at the huge melon on his head. That's the kid that has the huge melon that's made fun of by Michael Myers in So I Married an Axe Murderer. He's in Mighty Ducks, a great movie about the great state of Minnesota and the great sport of hockey. I mean, how many times did you watch Mighty Ducks as a kid, Eric?
Many, very many times. Actually, I think it's the second one they were filming it. I was at Hidden Falls in St. Paul, while they were filming it. I watched a little bit. There's a scene where they rollerblade through the park.
Yeah, it's a getting the gang back together, and they rollerblade literally all over the Twin Cities in a way that wouldn't be possible. They're going from the Mall of America to Eden Prairie or wherever the hell they're going. It's okay. You could not rollerblade across this large area. It would take you weeks.
Right.
But I didn't know that at the time. I just thought it was cool because they were rollerblading. And it was the 90s. Oh, no. Yeah, I remember the intro to Mighty Ducks, too. That's a movie I saw in the theater and blew my mind. Yeah, Matt Doherty's in it. The evil coach of the Hawks is Lane Smith. Is that guy's name. Oh, Francis. There it is. It's a movie called Francis, 1982. He's got a lead role in Francis. And Kevin Costner, a very, very young Kevin Costner, has an uncredited role as a character called Luther in this movie Francis, which is a biographical drama, I guess, about Frances Farmer, an actress from the 1930s who had some mental illness troubles. So, and Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams. We got there in the end.
All right, I started with a guy by the name of Quentin Tarantino, who's an actor in this movie.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, and as we talked about, he is really bad.
I mean, he's bad. From Dusk Till Dawn. Have you ever seen From Dusk Till Dawn?
I saw that in the movie theater. Definitely saw that in the movie theater.
That's like, oh boy. You're right next to George Clooney. It doesn't help you.
Interesting. He started like as he tried to be an actor. Like that was what his initial like hope was, and he only fell back on like writing and directing as like a way to make money because nobody wanted him to act.
Which it makes sense. I mean, I can't fault the directors and producers of the world.
So he's also as an actor in a movie called Sleep With Me. Have you ever heard of this movie? So it's the only reason anybody may have heard of this is there's a scene where he's actually talking to my next person, Todd Field, who ends up being a director. He directed the movie Tar that's nominated for Best Picture. He's nominated for Best Director now in 2023. But anyways, there's a scene where he's having a conversation with Todd Field about Top Gun and about how it's actually about, homosexuality and the love between two men. And it's like a pretty famous like diatribe about what Top Gun really is. And if you Google Quentin Tarantino Top Gun or Google Quentin Tarantino Sleep With Me, like it's funny and it's kind of a fun conversation. It says a lot about like who Quentin Tarantino is.
Sure, that
just
sounds like
at a party would just yell at you about how Top Gun's about homosexuality,
And we'd be like, we saw the volleyball scene, Quentin. This isn't really a compelling take anymore. We all get it. They had a very intense sexual bromance. Got it.
Right. But so that movie's called Sleep With Me. Todd Field is in it. As I said, he went on to be a director, and Tar is the movie, which I saw a little bit of it over the weekend. Didn't care for it. But that's
you only saw a little bit of it? Is this a classic you watched 10 minutes and you're like,
no, we started it very late and didn't make it through. But there was a little bit of that not for me. Anyways, Todd Field is also an actor in a movie called Eyes Wide Shut. Okay. He plays the piano player guy.
It gives him the Fidelio password. Yeah. That's him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. There's an actor in the movie Eyes Wide Shut named Tom Cruise. You ever heard of him?
No.
Familiar with his work? He's in Born on the 4th of July with Frank Whaley, who's in Field of Dreams.
Okay. Never seen Born on the 4th of July. Have you?
I haven't either. I heard it's Oliver Stone's best movie. I've never seen it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been on my list to watch as like I should check it out.
Okay.
I've also heard it's like maybe Tom Cruise's best acting. So.
Yeah, there was a period right towards the end of the 80s and then into the 90s where he was like trying to be a very serious actor.
Yeah.
This like period where he's like, all right, I'm going to get my Academy Award. I'm going to do serious dramatic roles. We're done with that. Now we're just in the entertainment phase. I'm just going to replay the hits, which is fine. I mean, I'm looking forward to the next Mission Impossible movie. I think that'll be a good time.
This year? It's supposed to come out this year, right?
Part 1, right? Isn't it 2 parts?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go to the theater. I will have a great time watching a fun action thriller starring Tom Cruise. Anyway. All right.
Now your number 1 favorite movie of all time. Let's hear it, Ben. You got some trivia, or you just gonna disclose it?
I got some trivia. Trivia 1. I'm raised on a farm. We had chickens and pigs and cows and sheep and everything. Down here I've been lost. Now they're taking them all away from here up to that. What's the name of that place? Above here a little ways, that town? Commences with a B. That's clue 1.
Is it Field of Dreams?
Nope. Clue 2. Blue. It's Blue Hill Cemetery. I think the name of it is. Not too far, I guess. About maybe 20 miles from here. A little town there. A little place. You know where it's at. But I was really surprised when I heard they were getting rid of a cemetery over here. Gonna put in buildings and something over there. It's clue 2.
No idea.
Well, I know people have been very good to me, Well, they see my condition, I guess. Must felt sorry for me, but it's real, my condition. It is. It's not put on, that's for sure. Boy, if I could only walk. If I could only get out, drive my car. I'd get another, and my son, if he was only better to me. After I bought him that car, he's got a nice car. I bought it myself just a short time ago. I don't know. these kids, the more you do for them, he's my grandson, but I raised him from 2 years old. That's clue 3.
I honestly, man, what's eating Gilbert Grape?
I don't see him very often. He just got the car. I didn't pay for all of it. I gave him $400. Pretty good. His boss knows it. Well, he's not working for that outfit now. He's changed. He's gone back on his old job. Hauling sand. No, not hauling sand. He's working in the office. That's right. He took over the office job. His boss told me that on the phone. But, he should help me more. He's all I got. He's the one who brought me up here and then put me here by myself among strangers. It's terrible. You stop and think of it. I've been without so much when I first come up here. It's what half of my troubles is from, him not being home with me. It didn't cost him nothing to stay here. Every time he need money, he'd always come. Mom, can I have this? Can I have that? But he never pays back. Too good, too easy. That's what everybody tells me. That's clue 4.
Are these lines from the movie? Like, I don't even understand what you're doing.
This is all one big long monologue from the movie. Yep.
Oh my god. Is it Tar?
No, it's not Tar. You've already completely forgotten this movie. I've told you it's my favorite movie before.
Oh, it's the Gates of Heaven, Heaven's the Gate.
That's Gates of Heaven.
Gates of Heaven. That's right.
There's an old woman who does a monologue in the middle, and she just rambles and contradicts herself, and it's just utter banal insanity.
And this is your favorite movie ever.
Oh yeah, yeah, baby.
Gates of Heaven.
Gates of Heaven, 1978 documentary. I know you're going to hate it. It's at least short. It's only an hour and a half, so gut it out. An hour and a half. It's not long. It's going to feel long. I'm ready for those. Boy, it's an hour and a half. It felt like 8.5. I'm ready for those comments.
It's the coolest movie I've ever seen. Is maybe what
This is the opposite of cool. There's nothing cool about it. This is deeply uncool. It is wonderfully uncool. Anyway, yes, I'm going to... did you ever finish it the first time? You heard me say
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's fine. I know you're going to hate it. I'm prepared for your 1 star. It's okay.
I'm trying to think if this is the movie I watched. Like, is it just a bunch of old people sitting on their porch being talked to or talking at a camera? Is that what it is? Is that this movie? I can't remember if I start watching, like, oh shit, this one. But I seem to remember watching something where it's just like a bunch of old people sitting on their porch. That
description is perfectly fine. Yeah, they're all old of varying degrees of old. I mean, some are probably middle-aged, but it's close enough, Eric. I think that description's fairly apt. It's people sitting in various scenarios, looking at the camera and talking about various things.
My favorite genre.
Oh, it's you're gonna hate it. I know you hate it. It's fine. You're not gonna like it. Whatever. We're talking about it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not doing this to torture you. This is my honest favorite movie.
You will know my name as the law when I lay my
about a glass of beer.
I know they doused it in it. I've seen them do it. All right. Thanks, everybody.